Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
A magic beyond anything you could ever imagine.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Sagrera Farms on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day.
You really think that's the best idea?
Live from the Raising Cane studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
It's quite a piece of work.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane studio downtown in the capital city on this Thursday. Means brought to you by Sagrera Farms, Premium Angus Beef. Got Jordan Kitchens, Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos working towards the weekend. And lots to talk about here over the next couple of hours. Is Todd Graves going to buy the Saints? And is that a good thing for the Saints? We'll do that in 30 minutes. I'll preview LSU's baseball weekend to come. Keep in mind, 24 hours from right now, LSU's cranking things up in the Jacks College Classic with a matchup with Indiana, so I won't have time to preview that tomorrow. We'll get into that today. Chris Blair will be with us at 2:15. He'll be on the call for LSU and Bama on the hardwood on Saturday night. Bama was in a long one last night. Played Arkansas. It was a heck of a basketball game, and we'll talk a little bit about that with Chris at 2:15. Plus, there's a situation in Lawrence, Kansas right now, and it doesn't apply to LSU right now, but it could. I wrote a column about it at LouisianaSports.net. Not necessarily in the exact way that you're thinking right now, but I'll get to that coming up in 15 minutes. For right now, let's start the way we start every day with our opening drive.
Welcome to the big league.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive. Presented by Fabry Chevrolet GMC in St. Francisville.
Well, we were on the air yesterday. LSU was playing Nicholls, and I gave you scores intermittently throughout the 2 hours, but a 1 o'clock first pitch, not ideal for this radio program. We had it yesterday. We'll have it again tomorrow, but that game's in the books, and I want to give a big shout-out to John Peterson, who clubbed a big home run to make that a walk-off run rule victory so that I could write the story for LouisianaSports.net and get to Myers swim lessons on time. Big swing right there from John Peterson. But he made it happen. LSU won 12-1 in 8 innings at the box. And I have some thoughts on the game overall. I mentioned on the show yesterday, Zach Cowan started the game. He didn't have it at all, really. He got through the first inning with less damage than could have been inflicted. He gave up a solo homer. Then he gave up a couple of hits, and there was a throwing error, and the bases were loaded, and you were down 1-0. And he did make the pitch to get out of the inning. He blew a fastball by a guy with the bases loaded, and deserves credit for that. Then he came back in the second inning and gave up another hit, and there was a walk, and it just didn't have his good stuff. So they went to Dax Dothie in the second inning yesterday. I talked about Cowan as a potential starter on this team, how I'm not super in favor of that. I'm not pressing the panic button on Zach Cowan at this point, but he has to locate his pitches. And when he misses up, he gets hit. And he missed up consistently in the game yesterday, and they hit it hard. They're going to do that. So I think a lot of people are looking at this going, well, Cowan was terrible late last year, and he's been bad the first 2 outings. Like, has he been figured out? And I want to, just very briefly touch on that for a second. He was awful last year at South Carolina. In the regular season finale, he came out there, was giving up homers. He was terrible. And he was not good when LSU gave him the baseball in the regional. He was not good in that start. So those 2 outings were bad. People will say, well, he was terrible against Texas A&M too. I push back on that. His line score was terrible at Texas A&M. I don't think he was that bad. He gave up a triple on a changeup that was a decent pitch. And then he gave up the home run that gave Texas A&M the lead. We gave him a triple and a home run. He's a closer. He can't do that. Well, the home run he gave up that gave A&M the lead to win the series was to Caden Sorrell, who's going to be a top 10 pick in the draft. It will not surprise me at all if Caden Sorrell is the National Player of the Year this year. It will not surprise me. He's that good. And the pitch was down and away, and Sorrell, a left-handed hitter, just went down into his knees and lined it off the scoreboard. You have to throw it over the plate. And I thought he did in that instance, and a better hitter made a great swing. So I'm going to throw a little bit of damp water on the Cowan was terrible late last year. In Omaha, in a cavernous ballpark with some wind help, he was huge against Arkansas. I'm not telling you that it was a charade for 12 weeks last year. He can get outs in college baseball in the SEC. He has not pitched well for 2 outings. He needs to clean that up. You may see him this weekend. You may not. You may not see him until next midweek. He needs to be better. He needs to throw the ball over the plate. He needs to keep it down a little bit better. He was not great yesterday. The bullpen was very good. There were some walk issues. Theophilus, who's a really good strike thrower, that's been his MO as a high schooler, and that was his MO in the fall. He got a little bit loose and gave up 3 walks, and Santiago Garcia walked 2 guys as well. But nobody gave up a hit in the bullpen. And really, the biggest story out of the bullpen was Reagan Ricken, who I wrote about this morning at LouisianaSports.net. He is a very intriguing prospect. I will level with y'all here. I feel like I can give y'all a reasonable account at scrimmages when I watch from down the first baseline. I can tell you, until they turn the gun off, how hard guys throw, how many strikes they throw, how hard the contact is they give up. I am personally better at watching a pitcher for stuff from the camera view behind on TV. I'm just better at that. I can see movement. I can see location a little bit better. I can see shapes of pitches. I'm just not trained to do it from eye level on the 4th row of the first baseline. There are some scouts that can do it. I can't. I'm not a scout. So this was my first really good look at Ricken at LSU. There's YouTube videos out there, and if you watched the game yesterday and want to go look at the transformation that Reagan Ricken has made since he got to Baton Rouge, go look at the high school showcase footage on YouTube. He is a beanpole out there. He's throwing 89, 90 miles an hour. Now, he's not. He told the media yesterday he's gained 30 pounds since he got to LSU. I did that at LSU. It's just more pluckers and some domestic beers as opposed to protein and work in the weight room. But Ricken's put on 30 pounds since he's gotten to LSU. He's throwing harder, and he looks the part physically as a freshman. He's 6'5". He's now 215 pounds, and he looked great yesterday. I thought his fastball had some life to it. He threw a great changeup for a strikeout. He's working on his slider that he feels like he's got to get a little bit more depth on. It looks more cutterish right now, where it's a little bit more horizontal and not dropping vertically as much, and you want to miss bats with that vertical drop. There's a great image on Twitter today from John Eads of WAFB, who took video of Ricken pregame yesterday working with Gavin Guidry on breaking ball grips. And if you're going to look at one guy on this staff to learn how to throw a breaking ball, like, it would be Gavin Guidry. But Ricken was really good in this game on Wednesday afternoon. 3 innings, no hits. Didn't walk anybody, 2 strikeouts. He did hit or batter, got to a 3-1 count, threw a really good slider to get strike 2, and then got a 1 fouled off, and then he hit a guy. But I thought he looked really good. And Jay Johnson said something yesterday that I'm going to file away in the back of my mind. He said he could pitch on Fridays for us at some point. And I thought about something, and Jay is a little bit prone to hyperbole. He will say this guy's the best hitter in the country, this guy's the best shortstop in the country, this guy's he pumps his guys up in the media, and I'm fine with that. It is fine. But I'm struck by something he said when Ethan Fry was a freshman and sophomore. He said, we can't even really get Fry at bats, and I think he could be an All-American here. And this is when Ethan Fry was a freshman behind Dylan Cruz and Braden Jobert and that whole crew in the outfield on the Natty team, and didn't play at all. And then he got hurt in his sophomore year. Y'all remember that. But Jay was always really high on him. And we know now that Ethan Fry hit 331, 13 homers, was $1 million draft pick of the Astros, and became a star. He wasn't an All-American, but he was a star. He was right in the middle of LSU's lineup and was as good a hitter as LSU had in the postseason. You know, the 3-run double against Little Rock that was maybe the biggest swing of the year. He had a huge hit against Coastal, that line drive missile in the game that LSU won to clinch it, that tied the game, that banged off the wall. He's awesome. And that's what Jay thinks of the talent of Reagan Ricken. He was a high school quarterback, a really good athlete. His parents were both college athletes, and he's now kind of grown into his body, and they're going to ease him along here. But I talked about potential options in the weekend rotation, and I think Cooper Williams is the next guy up. And I think there are a couple that are probably, well, that are most certainly right now in front of Ricken, but they think a lot of him. And I like that spot for him. Low leverage, get on the mound, see what you got. It's his debut. And I'd like to see him in a little bit higher leverage spot in a non-conference game, maybe in his next time out there. And I don't know when you'll see him next. 38 pitches in the game on Wednesday. Maybe not on Friday, but I think for sure on Sunday he could be ready to go if LSU thinks he's the best guy to try to win a game against Central Florida. So I really liked that. Offensively, LSU did some good things in the game on Wednesday. I gravitate towards the home run that you saw from John Peterson because he's now hit the ball really hard a couple times. And I think this LSU team is going to be looking for right-handed bats, right-handed impact bats, because York's not coming out and Brown's not coming out and Curiel's not coming out. And then you've got Dardar, who's playing a lot right now. I think he's going to play. And I think they're going to be looking for some right-handed bats, whether that's in the starting lineup or on a day that you face a really good right-handed pitcher and you stack it with lefties, and then they bring a lefty out of the bullpen. Where's your right-handed punch? And I have not thought a ton of John Peterson with this team because I don't think he's got a position to play, and there are a lot of DH options. You're going to take Omar Cerna's bat out of the lineup? Maybe. I'm not ruling that out. You're going to take Braden Simpson's bat out of the lineup? Maybe. I don't know. But Pearson's another one. And you've got more guys than you've got spots in the lineup. So I think Peterson is interesting. I think he's got a spot as a DH against left-handed pitching and as a pinch hitter against left-handed pitching. He did that some last year and didn't have a ton of success. But he's a good hitter, and he's got a lot of power. That home run he hit yesterday cleared the bleachers with plenty to spare. And that's part of the depth of this lineup that I think is really exciting. Trent Carraway, another right-handed bat, hit the grand slam in the first inning yesterday afternoon, I guess I should say. Another great swing from him, and he's got power. He absolutely has power. He didn't use a lot of it a lot of the season at Oregon State until they got to the postseason. And I told you this entering opening day, and I'll double down on it. They did a lot of work with him on his swing in the fall. And that's why on opening day against a left-handed starter, Carraway hit ninth, because they're not going to put a lot of pressure on him right now while he's figuring out the new mechanics at LSU, the new approach that LSU has instilled in him to hit with. So they're letting him get his feet under him. And yesterday was a step in the right direction from that perspective as he hits a grand slam, an advantage count. So that was really good. I thought LSU was fine offensively. They got a ton of help from a midweek Nicholls pitching staff that walked 10 guys, but they put 12 runs on the board in 8 innings of work. You'll take that all day, every day. So nice work from LSU, workmanlike against Nicholls. Nicholls right now, best strength of schedule in the country. I don't know if anybody's going to argue with that. They went to Knoxville for the weekend, and then they played LSU in a midweek. So that you're talking, they played South Alabama in the middle of that, but you're talking 3 against Tennessee, 1 against LSU in your first 5. That's tough sledding for the Colonels. I think things will probably ease up on them a little bit as they navigate non-conference play. But good stuff from LSU. The Tigers moved to 5-0. Now they fly to Jacksonville. They did that last night, and they'll get ready to play Indiana tomorrow. I'll preview the entirety of that weekend, which features a very, very interesting potential Sunday matchup with Central Florida and a starter who you've seen before and a closer who played for you. So we'll talk about that in 45 minutes from now. Our Thursday show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms, premium Angus beef. Do beef a little bit differently at Sagrera Farms. It's some of the best beef in the country, and it's right here just north of Baton Rouge. All you got to do is call Sean Sagrera, 719-1723. Talk to him. He's really passionate about what he's doing there. If you're not satisfied with the quality of beef that you're buying weekly, if you're not satisfied with the cost of the beef relative to the quality, how about Sean? Sean hasn't raised prices like everybody else has. He's got a premium product, so you're going to pay for that, but you're getting prime Angus beef, incredible marbling, incredible texture and flavor. The tenderness is off the charts. It's what we got at the Palmer House. I'm thinking about a ribeye tomorrow, quite frankly. It's in the freezer right now. If you want some of the best beef in the country and you want to have a whole cow, half cow, quarter cow at your house, so when you're ready to cook, you've got the best, call Sean. 225-719-1723. All Sean has on that farm is prime. That's it. No select, no choice. It is prime Angus beef, and it can be yours if you make that call over to Sean Sagrera at Sagrera Farms. They bring you our Thursday shows each and every week. We'll come back. Interesting stuff going on right now in Lawrence, Kansas, and it doesn't apply to LSU from a basketball perspective right this minute, but I think it's going to impact college sports as a whole. And I think it's going to be a transformative thing. I'll tell you why when I come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Some call it overplanning, but at Boudreaux's Electrical, they call it foresight. Be prepared for the next power outage with a Generac home standby generator from the folks at Boudreaux's Electrical. Neil and Melissa have been with running Boudreaux's Electrical for 40 years, okay? they've serviced this community, and their customer service is off the charts. They monitor these generators remotely. So if something happens and it's not ready to function, they'll send a tech out there and get it taken care of. So you have the peace of mind of knowing that generator is going to come on when you need it and that power goes out. Maybe you've already bought a Generac home standby generator from one of the big box stores and you get no customer service. You haven't heard from them since you walked out the door. Well, what happens if something breaks down? Get the Boudreaux's Boost. Call the folks at Boudreaux's Electrical, and they will help you service your Generac standby generator, even though you didn't buy it from them. That's what they mean to us here in South Louisiana. Do this before hurricane season, y'all. I know it's February and it's not what you're thinking about right now, but you know it's coming. So call them at 985-397-1562. That's 985-397-1562. Or in Gonzales in the 225 area code, it's 300-9389. You can also find them online at boudreauxelectrical.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
March Madness is heading to Las Vegas, and LouisianaSports.net is sending one of you plus a friend with it. We're giving away a 3-night Las Vegas getaway from Wednesday, March 18th through Saturday, March 21st, just in time for all the madness. Hotel stay and flights covered. All you have to do to enter is head to LouisianaSports.net, click the March Madness getaway link, sign up before our March Madness Pick'em launches, get yourself entered, and you could be watching the tournament from Las Vegas instead of your couch. Winners will be announced Monday, March 2nd.
Incredible read, Jordan.
That
was really well done.
Hey, man, I practiced that one last night.
Our Thursday shows brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. I think this story that I'm going to talk about, like probably 80% of you listening are well aware of, maybe 20% are not because you're completely checked out on college basketball. But I think that there is a relevant local storyline here, or it's easy to create a local storyline out of this. Darryn Peterson is, to me, the best player in college basketball. He is a 6'6" wing from Kansas. He shoots the absolute lights out, 43% on the year from three. He's averaging 20 points per game. You've heard Bill Self talk about him this year and saying he's as gifted a scorer as he's seen in the Big 12 since Kevin Durant left town at Texas. And I don't think that's some sort of hyperbole. He's not 6'10", so he's not Durant to a T, but he is an incredible scoring guard. And most people believe he is a slam dunk number one pick in what looks like the best freshman class we've seen in years. That's Darryn Peterson, for those that aren't aware of him. He also plays half the time. You say, well, does he get hurt all the time? Is he sick? What? We're not real sure. We've heard the flu. We've heard hamstring issues. There's been cramping. We're not real sure. And last night, a really incredible illustration, because I think most of you do know who Darius Acuff is at Arkansas. He, to me, is the second or third best freshman in the country. And last night, Darius Acuff scored 22 points in the first half. He scored 49 in a double overtime game in Tuscaloosa and never came off the floor. He played 50 minutes in Tuscaloosa on the road, double overtime, and scored 49 points. And in the same window, Darryn Peterson scored 18 points in the first half at Oklahoma State. So, like, basically, Acuff and Peterson are going shot for shot in different gyms in the first half. Acuff plays the rest of the way in a double overtime game and gets his heart broken in the loss. Peterson played 3 minutes after halftime, said, I can't really go. And Bill Self, after the game, was asked about it. And Bill Self said, yeah, wasn't really expecting that. I thought he was good to go. And you can tell, looking at Bill Self, that he's kind of out of answers with his star player who plays half the time. They've played 24 games, and Peterson has missed 11. And last night, he just didn't play in the second half, basically. So I'm not here to chastise Darryn Peterson. I'm not here to tell you he's a liar or that he's got some sort of snake in his camp. I don't know how bad the cramps are. I don't know how bad the hamstring issue was. I don't know what his temperature was when he had the flu. I don't know any of that stuff, and I don't really care. What this appears to be from the outside, and I cannot prove it, but it appears to be a young man who would have gone from the high school to the NBA if given the opportunity. The NBA pays better than college. College pays great for these kind of guys. The NBA pays better. And on your second NBA contract, it pays astronomically. And that's the prize here. It looks to me that Darryn Peterson does not really care if Kansas wins or loses. He cares about the check at the end. And this is something Jordan and I talked about last week, where there's always going to be a disconnect in professional sports, and this is now professional sports, between fans and players. Fans don't give a rip what your contract says. They don't care if you get paid on the 1st and 15th, if you only get paid on Mondays after NFL games, what's your signing bonus. Fans don't care. They only care about winning. Some players care so deeply about winning, and money is important, but it's secondary, and it takes care of itself when we play well and I win. And then there are some players who say, don't really care who I play for, what's the check say? And none of that is right or wrong. It just is, and it's a dichotomy in interests. And that has, more so than ever, crept into college sports, which we care about so deeply in this market with LSU down the street. And no, LSU does not have the number 1 pick in the NBA draft on its roster right now. This just did. But in the last 20 years, Jamarcus Russell went first overall, and Joe Burrow went first overall, and Simone Augustus went first overall, and Paul Skeens went first overall. And then you've got second overall picks like Jaden Daniels and Dylan Cruz, who were second overall picks. Sylvia Fowles was a second overall pick. This is a school that routinely has famous star players that go really high and get huge paydays in the professional ranks. It happens here all the time. It just so happens that some of the folks that have, and look, you have transfers that come here that are famous when they come here. Tommy White was famous when he got here. Angel Reese came in and was a mega star at LSU. Sam Levitt just transferred, famous, big payday. And thankfully at LSU, from my perspective as an LSU alum and an LSU fan, like Tommy White transferred here and hurt his shoulder in the first inning of the first game. He couldn't take infield in May. He played all the way through, hit a massive home run, won a national championship. Angel Reese played as hard as anybody you will see. You can't be that dynamic a rebounder in the SEC Player of the Year if you're not giving everything you've got on the floor. Sam Levitt's got a Liz Frank injury. You just saw video of him on Twitter yesterday grinding in the offseason. You've had folks, and look, Paul Skeens was walking down to the bullpen. I saw him with my own 2 eyes 3 days after he had started against Wake Forest to close out a national championship game if they needed it. Now, they won 17-3 or whatever it was, so they didn't, but he was going to go out there and pitch. He was ready to go. I'm questioning Dylan Cruz's effort or Jaden Daniels' effort here. Joe Burrow played the second half of the national championship game with cartilage cracked in his ribs. But you've got a situation now where, more so than ever, some of these players can cash checks and really kind of have their eye out the door. And it appears to me that Darryn Peterson falls into that category. And I'm just curious how the folks that are cutting his checks at Kansas feel about him taking himself out of the second half at Oklahoma State, feel about him playing 60% of the games. So what does it mean? Well, what can they do? Well, I don't know if they can do anything. But I do know that Washington held on to their quarterback because of a contract. And I do know that LSU paid Ole Miss $1 million to go get Prince William Unmielen and TJ Daugherty. And so what's to suggest that teams can't put in contracts that are incentive laden? Darryn, I got a lot of money here for you. I need you to play X amount of games to hit that threshold, or else it's coming down to this. You see this in the NFL all the time. If you score this many points, this bonus kicks in. If you play this many minutes, this kicks in. I realize that that may incentivize someone to do something personally that doesn't necessarily benefit the team if you're just trying to get shots up so you can hit your bonus, but it's better being out on the floor than hitting yourself with the Theragun on the bench and saying you can't go in. I believe Darryn Peterson's case is going to resonate nationally and at places like LSU where you have famous players on your roster that your contracts may look different. They may say, you got to have some incentives in here. Now, it's an open market, so somebody may come in with guaranteed money like you can in the professional ranks, and then you're up to this. But the key here is you're going to have to find players that you recruit from the high school ranks and from the transfer portal ranks that have the best interest of the team at heart, best you can tell. Because I think this is a think, not a no. I think Bill Self is growing tired. It's just based on the interviews. And he's got a team that can win a national championship, and he's got the best player in the country, and you're trying to steady those waters. But that's brutal. And you look at what Darius Acuff did, and John Calipari went to the postgame press conference after Darius Acuff played 50 minutes, scored 49 points, and said, yeah, he was in a walking boot 2 days ago. That's a dude who wants to win. And again, I'm not telling you that as a brilliantly skilled athlete with literally Darryn Peterson is likely to make hundreds of millions of dollars in the NBA. Those contracts, those max deals, you get a couple of them, hundreds, not 20 million, 50 million, 250 million. And so I'm not telling him that he has to go out there and handle his business against Oklahoma State when he's got, what's on the line, 20 right now? He doesn't have to do that. It's in his right. And there are some people that would say, he's exactly right. Why would you waste that? And there are some people that say, that's ridiculous. You committed to play for the team. You play for the team. Neither one of those stances is wrong in my estimation. What I'm telling you is the situation is real. And if you want to mitigate against that, you've got to recruit to character, and you've got to recruit to contracts that stipulate how much money is coming out of your coffers to these guys. Because if you've got revenue sharing and you're dumping a bunch of money into somebody who only wants to play half the time, that could be crippling to your quote-unquote salary cap. These are things we never had to consider in the college sports landscape. I'm watching it in Lawrence, Kansas right now. Ultimately, Darryn Peterson's his college legacy will be what happens when they tip the ball off in that tournament. If he does what he did last night in that tournament, you know. If he's kind of load management here or there, and then he said, for 6 games, I got you. Give me 34 minutes. That seems far-fetched to me. And speaking of far-fetched, you could tell me that he's really dealing with cramping issues, and he really had a hamstring issue, and he really had the flu, and really he was only able to play in 14 games thus far. That's hard for me to believe too. Now look, Patrick Peterson in 2010 had significant cramping issues. He cramped really badly against North Carolina inside. And so there are some people that are genetically predisposed to that, and you've got to get a hold of it. But this is a quote-unquote situation here in Lawrence. And it's not applicable to LSU right now, but, I mean, Ben Simmons came through here. And I mentioned all the other number 1 picks from the other sports. It happens here a lot. Championships are happening here a lot. And there's a heavy financial investment in a lot of players around here. You've got to vet that now, and there may be strong addendums to contracts coming up based on incentives. You got to give me what we're paying you for, or else we're not paying it. I'm not an attorney. I don't see these. I don't know how enforceable it is. And I don't know if that's going to work in the open market when the next school over might be willing to do it guaranteed. But it's something to think about for sure. And last night, the dichotomy between the efforts from Acuff and Peterson was so stark for two guys that are on the exact same trajectory, more or less. I thought it was fascinating. So that's my look at the Darryn Peterson situation in Lawrence, Kansas. We'll step aside when we come back. Let's talk about the New Orleans Saints. Who's next to buy them? And would Todd Graves be a good answer? Next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Check out Marucci. Take a tour. Campus tour is awesome over there at Marucci. They make 1,200 bats there every single day. And that wouldn't be, some huge story if it wasn't the official bat of Major League Baseball, and if they weren't just starting a backyard shed here in Baton Rouge 22 years ago. But that's the case. Such a cool place. I know that youth baseball is starting up. Myers Man got his first T-ball practice ever coming up on Saturday. Fired up to get out there. If your youth team's about to start up and you want to do something to team build, go out and see him at Marucci. Weather might not be awesome on Saturday, so it might be a great time instead of practice to go out and take a tour. And every single ticket comes with a 20% discount in the campus tour store and in the hitter's house. If you're looking for that new bat and new equipment, they got it there at Marucci. It's the official bat of Major League Baseball. It's right here in Baton Rouge. Go by and see them. Check out a campus tour. You can find a ticket at maruccisports.com/campus-tour. That's all there at maruccisports.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Thursday show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Call Sean at 225-719-1723. Some of the best beef in the country is just north of town in Baton Rouge, and they bring you our Thursday shows each and every week. All right, let's talk a little Saints. It's off season. It's a little bit of a slow time. It will ramp up with the combine, and certainly mock draft season never truly ends until they start making the actual picks. So we'll be in that for quite some time. But I think that this growing swell of discussion surrounding Todd Graves and the New Orleans Saints is very interesting. Back on Super Bowl week, Jason and Travis Kelce threw a big party, and TMZ was there, and Todd Graves was there, and they asked him about potentially buying the Saints, and he said, I may have an in there. He's well known as a football lover. He's a Louisiana native. He has a Super Bowl suite every year. He's got $22 billion, and it makes a lot of sense because we know that the succession plan for the New Orleans Saints is this. Gail Benson's going to have it until she's physically incapable of doing so, and the Benson's plan has long been to sell the organization, not pass it down, sell it, and give the proceeds to the city of New Orleans. That's been the plan for some time now. So it stands to reason that the Saints will come up for sale sometime in the next decade or so, right? And that can be a frightening thing for the city of New Orleans. Because, let's be real here. Let's take off the black and gold glasses and be real about this. The Saints are not the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're not the Green Bay Packers. They're not the New York Giants. They're not the Dallas Cowboys. The Saints are one of the three smallest market teams in the NFL. And if you look at the five smallest market teams in the NFL, according to this list I just looked at, it's the Packers at 1, which, of course, the Packers are owned essentially by the ticket holders. It's the Bills at 2, Buffalo, not a big market. It's the Saints at 3. It's the Jaguars at 4. It's the Raiders at 5. And just beyond that, and keep in mind, the Saints are at 3 there. And just beyond that, you're talking about franchises like some that have moved in the past, right? I think you're looking at a franchise that is grouped in with Jacksonville, who's long been rumored to play half its games in London or move to London, and the Raiders, who have moved multiple times in my lifetime. The Rams, the Cardinals, these are the type of franchises the Saints are probably lumped in with. That does not, for 1 second, diminish the passion that New Orleans has for its team. Not for 1 second. I know that. The whole league knows that. Nobody wanted to go in that dome with Breeze and Peyton on that sideline in prime time. You got your clock cleaned if you did. But facts are facts. Numbers are numbers. New Orleans is not some bustling place like Nashville that's just growing leaps and bounds. It's the opposite of that. And so the sale of the Saints can be intimidating to fans of the Saints. And if Todd Graves can step up and make this happen, he's 51 years old. That's a Louisiana native who would have no intention ever of moving the Saints out of New Orleans. He's got $22 billion. I'm not sure exactly where that slots him in with the other ownership groups and owner families in the NFL, but he's got enough chops to make it happen here. And so for me to look at this, when you realize where things were just 20 years ago when Katrina rolled through and the things that were possible at that point with other markets, to have a young, very rich new Louisiana native come in and buy the Saints, that's exhale number one. Because, yeah, you want your owner to do the right things as the owner in terms of hiring people and making decisions to fire people and making the organization run functionally and making it in a destination for free agents that know they'll be taken care of. You've heard Jacob Hester and Matt Flynn talk about the various organizations they played for. Hester calls the Chargers the Bush League Bolts, and he says that Denver was one of the finest organizations in the league. Matt Flynn played for the Packers, who was as stable as any organization in the sport. He ended up with the Raiders, which were a disaster. You want your owner to do the right things, of course, and that's important with the next person who steps in after Gail Benson is gone. But before that, you need them in New Orleans, okay? And I'm not suggesting the Saints are close to leaving, right? But I am suggesting that if you were to list 10 teams likely to move, the Saints would make the list. Doesn't mean they're going to. I don't think they will. I think the Saints will be in New Orleans till the day I die. But I would like to have no concerns over that. And right now there are none. But with Todd Graves coming in, you would exhale. I would rather have a bad owner who kept the Saints in New Orleans than one that was really good but was looking to make money and looking elsewhere, okay? Because what happened to St. Louis and what happened to Oakland, even with the A's in baseball, that makes my stomach turn. I hate it. So this news that he's interested and we know he's got the money, he does know Gail Benson, this feels like a narrow and direct track to the next ownership of the Saints. And if that happens, that's a huge win for the city of New Orleans and fans of the Saints, wherever you may be, Gulf Coast or anywhere else in the state of Louisiana. I hope that's the case. I have no idea how well he would do, but it would floor me beyond belief if a Louisiana native bought the Saints and moved them. It would just floor me. So I think that's awesome news. I think that's the best case scenario, and I think it is a completely positive development that you're hearing. I know it sounds like I framed it negatively at the start, but that's because it's a real discussion that we can have. Nobody's talking about moving the Bears. Well, they might move to a different state, but they're not moving across the country. The Saints, it's already been a possibility, and we've seen the NFL do this recently with other organizations. Chargers left town, Rams left town, Raiders left town in a different time. Cardinals left town, Oilers left town. It happens. Can't have that for the Saints, and if Todd Graves takes over, it won't. I'm looking forward to that if one day it does happen. All right, take a time out, come back with more. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Fabry Chevrolet GMC, FabryChevrolet.com is that website. They're on Highway 61 in St. Francisville. And under new ownership, as of October the 1st, the Fabry family took over that Chevy GMC lot in St. Francisville. They are thrilled for you to make the short drive from Baton Rouge to St. Francisville to get incredible deals. Chevy Silverado's up to $11,000 off MSRP or 1.9 APR financing. You're talking about GMC Sierras, the other truck, up to $13,000 off MSRP, 0.00 APR financing. Looking for a new truck, February is the month to do it, and you've only got 9 days left in the month. So get on by on Highway 61 in St. Francisville this weekend and check them out. The Fabry family is going to give you incredible customer service, great buying experience, and great service after the sale. Remember that service department services all makes as well. So make the short drive to St. Francisville, as I said, or check them out online at FabryChevrolet.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
GoTro's Outdoor Power. GoTro's Outdoor Power, 2 locations, one on Airline Highway here in Baton Rouge, one in Gonzales. Family owned and operated for more than 20 years. Looking for a new Hustler zero-turn mower. Look no further than GoTro's Outdoor Power. I know that grass is about to start growing real quickly. Make sure you've got a mower. They've got financing options available at GoTro's Outdoor Power. If you want to stop by, you can get behind a mower, brand new one, for less than $100 over at GoTro's Outdoor Power. $100 a month, I should say. So financing options are available, and their customer service is second to none. you can buy a zero-turn mower from one of the big box stores, sure. But do they have a trailer that'll haul it to you? Do they have that huge parts department that can make sure you're taken care of after you purchase that piece of machinery? Gotros Outdoor Power does. Work with a local company here in Baton Rouge, down in Gonzales. Whether you're a commercial operation or somebody that's just got some land and needs to get that mowed up, Gotros Outdoor Power is happy to help you out. Stop by today, Airline Highway or in Gonzales. They're open until 5 p.m. Also open on Saturdays as well. It's Gotros Outdoor Power. I was looking at some LSU recruiting stuff today, and I'm just keeping my eye on one specific recruitment because I think it's going to be indicative of a few things. Not necessarily declarative, but indicative. It's Easton Royal. Easton Royal is the number one player in the state of Louisiana. He is a top 10 player nationally, according to Rivals. He's the 5'10", 200-pound wide receiver from Brother Martin down in New Orleans. And he's been committed to Texas, and LSU continues to recruit him. And every recruitment is different. So I can't make, as I said, declarative statements on LSU's chops, both as a recruiting staff and as an NIL operation, revenue share operation. But this one is interesting to watch because Easton Royal is incredibly highly thought of, and you're not battling just anybody for his commitment. You're battling Texas, whose limitless resources are intimidating for me to sit back and look at. And if he decides to go to Texas, he does. And it would not shock me at all if he ended up at Texas. But if he ends up at LSU and does flip, I think that would suggest a few things. One, LSU on its home soil can keep up with Texas dollar for dollar in certain circumstances. I wouldn't suggest all circumstances, but in certain circumstances, it would also suggest that this staff can go down there into New Orleans and get what they're supposed to get. You can roll your eyes at me when I say that I like the fact that Frank Wilson was on staff at LSU. I never said LSU would lose New Orleans without him. I never said that he was the key to the entire operation. I never said that without Frank Wilson, the LSU recruiting operation would fall apart. I just said Frank Wilson knows a lot of people in New Orleans, both coaches, family members. And having him on the staff, I thought was a good resource for LSU. Didn't mean they got all the New Orleans kids, but I thought it gave you a pretty good chance. And so LSU decided to move on from him for some offensive staff members that have never recruited that area. And they were playing from behind with Easton Royal, okay? They weren't on a level footing with the Texas staff that had been there for years. They're just rolling in here in waves in November and December based on who it was and trying to make up ground. But if they can flip Easton Royal, who, by the way, according to reports from the folks at On3, is already receiving NIL money from Texas, it would be a statement recruiting victory for LSU. I have no idea what the likelihood is that LSU can do that. I love when my guy Shea Dixon over at On3 talks about watch what they say, watch what they do, not what they say. So I'm not going to listen to Easton Royal if he says he's 100% committed or what. None of that really matters. How many times did he visit Tiger Stadium this year? How many times did he visit Austin? How many times do LSU's coaches continue to go to his games? That's going to be interesting to watch. It's not mandatory that LSU flips Easton Royal. It would be nice, and I think it would be a statement if they do, just based on the circumstances here. If you're in competition with Auburn for an uncommitted player out of Acadiana, and he ends up picking LSU, well, that's a good win, but statement is a little bit much. You go get a 5-star who's committed to Texas and receiving NIL payments from Texas in the high school ranks and flip him at any point and get him on campus at LSU, that's a statement. It's a statement this staff can do it. New Orleans is a statement. Big Bad Texas can't just come in and throw money around and get whoever they want. Now, on the flip side, I realize the way that I'm speaking, but if you don't flip him, I'm not going to suggest the entire recruiting operation is broken. They're still doing a pretty good job in the state of Louisiana. I think they're going to get Alfred Simeon. I think they're going to get Ahmad Hudson. I think they're going to get Braylon Calais. They've already got a commitment from Peyton Houston, who seems to be locked in. Like, they've got some guys from the state of Louisiana. Jaden Anding is Aiden Anding's younger brother. I think they're going to get him. Jaden Miles is the guy who got an offer at running back. I think they'll probably get him. They're going to do okay in the state of Louisiana, but there are some guys at the top of this class, and I don't think they're going to get Elijah Haven. So you'd really like to get Easton Royal there at the top. If you don't, not a disaster. If you do, that means a lot, I think, to this staff and the way that they're putting together their recruitment. And so that's one I've just got an eye on. Not to suggest anything's imminent. He's still working through spring ball at Brother Martin, and you'll get to the camp circuit, and a lot of things happen over the course of that time. And you still got a whole season worth of visits and all that goes into that, okay? And we'll see if LSU's offense opens some eyes after a disastrous showing last year with a new coaching staff. I'm hopeful that it does. But I think the Easton Royal recruitment could potentially be kind of a watershed moment for this staff in recruiting the state of Louisiana if they can make it happen. How likely is that? They don't pay me to know that, but I'm curious about it. So I'll keep an eye on that. That's it for hour number one here on this Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. We'll step aside, get some national headlines from SportsCenter. When we come back, some really interesting things about this weekend for LSU baseball, including a Sunday starter you've watched before on the other side and a closer who pitched for LSU. We'll talk about that next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. You know, safety is a big deal in the bathroom, especially as folks age. So if you've got a loved one who's getting up there in age but wants to stay home and you feel like there may be a hazardous situation potentially there, you can't eliminate that risk. It's always going to be there. But you can mitigate against it. David and his team are always putting in non-slip floors, always doing guardrails in spots that could be hazardous. Walk-in tubs are more comfortable and safer for those that are aging. Maybe you need a bench in the shower. They can install that as well. They can put a new shower in. It's got a little bit more room in it. Could be a little bit safer. Those are the types of things they do all the time that maybe you don't think about, but now that you hear me talk about it, that might be a good idea. Sit down with David and have that consultation. He's happy to talk you through what it is One Bath and Closets does, and I promise you this, they'll do it right the first time and leave the competition behind. Check them out online at OneBathAndClosets.com. That's OneBathAndClosets.com.